I'm here because I wrote a book. The book is called Much Abides. It's a survival guide for aging lives. It's an awfully arrogant title, isn't it? How can someone, burned out heart surgeon, can say that he has strategy for all of our lives? And I know there's skeptics out there that are saying, I don't know. This cowboy's up here, I don't think he's got much to say, or my wife made me come, or, whatever. I'm going to double down on that, though. Tonight, I didn't drive down here to South Carolina and all that traffic to not have something to say. Now, Fitzgerald wrote the lines. He said, you don't write a book because you want to say something. You write a book because you have something to say. But I think, and I fully believe this, that some of the stuff that I'm going to tell you tonight can change your life. So we're going to get started, okay? Three things came together for me to write the book. And looking back on it, probably what I'm going to say didn't have anything to do with it, but I'm going to go through it anyway. The first thing was stories. I come from a long line of Celts. My father is Scotch-Irish, my mother is Irish, and my brother and I grew up in a family where if you couldn't tell a story, you couldn't talk. They would tell the most nuanced, rich, fertile stories about people. And ordinary citizens.
I can ask you to move that mic a little closer to your mouth, sir.
You guys need to get your technology. Okay. All right. The person that can't hear, come on down. There's 2 seats down here, so I won't have to do it. I'm not going to do that. All right, so, stories. My grandfather, my aunts, my uncles, my father, phenomenal storytellers. Ordinary citizens that were in our neighborhood would be elevated to hero status. They would do something brave or courageous, and we would be just captivated by it. And then there'd be somebody that's supposed to be in charge, or supposed to be righteous or whatever, and they could be reduced very quickly to peasant status because of the things they did. So I learned how important stories are. And that fascination with stories has really changed my life because I've always wanted to know about other people and what was going on in their life. And then when I became a surgeon, before I allowed the patient to tell me what was wrong with them, I wanted to know who they were and what their life was like, how they happened to come here. Because I knew that this wasn't about me, and it wasn't really about the disease that I was getting ready to operate on. It was about this nice woman or nice man who has a life, and they have to have this problem, and they come to me to fix it so they can go back to that life and lead it. And so it made me a much better diagnostician because there's things that they would tell me. My father had the same disease and my grandfather. And then you begin to see different patterns. And so that made me a better diagnostician, made me want to know more about people. So I began to realize early in life, in the book, I tell a story about a Penn State football player who I operated on late one night, and he was an All-American, played. Any Penn State people here? Yeah. Real? Yeah. All right. Yeah. Huh? Okay, good, Dick. He was a hero. He was like a guy. He was a middle linebacker at linebacker U, and ended up having heart surgery in Charlotte. He still, even after surgery, he still didn't trust me. He made me go and show me the films and everything. And he had not really been taking care of himself. He traveled all over the country, and you saw that enthusiasm from the people in the back. He was going out, drinking, going out, and he put on weight, and he had started smoking. He wasn't taking care of himself. And so after surgery, I went by, and I was talking to him, and he kind of blew me off. Wasn't interested. in what I had to say. And then I came back 30 days later to the post-op, and I said to him, I said, where is this going? Here's a guy that worked all his life. He came from the coal mines in western Pennsylvania, worked himself through a lot of trials and tribulations in life. So where's it going? And I said, it's going to end up in bars and with you smoking and getting heavy and stuff. And he didn't like that either. And about a week later, one of my nurses comes, and I'm working in my office, and they said, there's a guy here who wants to talk to you. He's really big. Okay. He says, Dr. Edwards, he said, I owe you an apology. He said, when you started to talk to me about my story, that clicked with me, that I don't want my story to end there. I don't want it to end in bars. I don't want it to end with people losing respect for me. He went back home and started a mission sort of taking care of young people that had had heart surgery and recovered. He got into phenomenal shape, and he and I stayed in touch. But the point is that each of us is writing a story, our story, every day. Okay? And those chapters are, at the end, there's going to be a ledger. It's going to be positive, negative, or whatever. So what we have to do is respect that story, respect the thoughts that we have, the actions that we do, because this is our life, and there's no one else that is like us. There's never been one person on the planet that's been identical to us and had our experiences. Okay? So that's the theme in the book. The second is my colleagues, my buddies, who are getting ready to make the transition from careers, successful careers, to retirement. They can't even say the word. Okay? So what are you doing? Well, I'm not doing much. You retired? Well, not really. Kind of. Maybe not so much. You know the drill, okay? Because everybody thinks that what they did in their career is the value they have in society. And so they come to me and they're lost. Lives that were rich in potential now are kind of sclerotic, kind of bare, scared. And one of the reasons, of course, is that a lot of us are boomers. You know, we are in the most successful generation in history, the most educated. We've made more money than any group of people in the world in history. And we are terrified of going into retirement and having to reinvent ourselves. And so one of the things about the book is it really takes you through the steps of trying to put a new life together. And the third thing is a gift that I have. It's been an amazing experience. I was operating one day, and if you'll notice that I'm holding anything, I started to know that my left hand was shaking. And it wasn't that it was a disability or anything. It was a sign to me. I had always been really good with my eyes and my hands. I made a living doing that. And the idea that I would be an old guy in the operating room shaking and having the nurses go, oh, I wonder if he's going to get through this, you know, really shook me. But it wasn't the fact that I wasn't going to do surgery anymore. It was the fact that I wouldn't be able to be close to the patients in that sacred sphere around sick people and to hear their stories and try to help them get well. And so I had to come up with a new gig. And I started to think about what I could do. And all of a sudden, these sort of memories of both my parents having Alzheimer's disease and how we struggled as a family trying to get them help. And I had suppressed that. That was in a part of my brain that I didn't go into. I don't like to fail. And I felt like with my father, we did pretty good. My mother, we kind of failed her. So what happened was I had the idea that I was going to start a clinic taking care of people losing their memories. And I went to my wife, Mary. And I said, Mary, I've got this idea. I think I'm going to start a clinic taking care of people losing their memories. And she said, oh, really? That's great. First of all, she said what all Irish Catholic wives say to their husbands: "You've been drinking again." And she said, one of the things that you always say when we do mission trips and stuff, that all compassion begins with confidence. If you don't have a skill, you can't help people, okay? They got family members to hug them, but you gotta have a skill. You gotta be good at something to impact other people's lives. And she said, you don't have a skill. You're no good at this. They're family, you're just like family, you'll hug them. So I went online and found a bunch of places that would possibly retrain me, and Hopkins accepted me, and I spent about 4 months in Baltimore, mostly by myself. Okay, it's another story. But, and they prepared me for starting the clinic in Charlotte, North Carolina. I thought I knew what it would be like. I thought we studied the patients and we knew all of the stages and I knew all the medicines and everything. I had no idea how the families and the patients would affect me personally. It changed me not only as a physician, but it changed me as a person. It made me understand much more about suffering and also about courage, about resilience. So I was given this gift of being able to be in the lives of people who needed me in their life. The third goal of the book, and when I look back about the reason for writing the book, I now know that I was writing the book to purge or to get outside of me the idea that I had to quit doing heart surgery. And to put that stuff down sort of made it like that I was okay and I could move on. Put a period at the end of the sentence, just like we need to do almost every day, because we got to write a new chapter, right, in this book that we have our own stories. So third thing was that I was very frustrated with the fact that the literature on the brain, I became fascinated with normal cognitive aging. And that's what the book is about. There's some stuff about protecting yourself from dementia, but what it's about is about us, who we are whole and trying to navigate this aging thing, okay? And I become fascinated with it. I saw this glitch that all the science, the neuroscience, the neurophysiologists, all that stuff, they could tell you what cells are affected and what part of the brain that is, but they didn't tell you how it affects you, your perceptions and your behavior. And the pop culture people, they can tell you all the stuff you want and they have no science behind it. So part of the book, and the real reason for writing the book, was to provide the science behind aging. So I used a technique that when I do a workshop or we're doing something, I like the idea of telling people what the mistakes that most people make. And so I weaved 10 of the common mistakes that people make in aging throughout the book. And tonight I'm going to talk about 3. So in order to get all 7, you got to buy the book. All right. So, but there's a lot of difference between one of your children getting ready to go out, or you're in a war zone and someone says, "Now you be careful." Okay? And you say, "Okay, yeah, I'll be careful." It's much better to say, "There's a landmine right there." Okay? And when you tell someone that if they step right there, they're not going to step there. Okay? So the mistakes that people make are what I weave through the book, and it gets people's attention. And some of the stories, if we have time, we might be able to go over a couple of stories of letters that I've gotten from people. All right, so mistake number 1, underestimating the time that we have left. Now this is a really important concept for this run, all right? Right now, I'm going to start with a staggering statistic. In the United States today, they're on the average, there's 96,000 people that are 100 or more. Okay, 96,000. It's not very many. In 2050, 28 years from now, that number is going to be 800,000. 800,000. So there might be some Gomers in this room that are going to be alive in 2050, okay? And I might be one of them. I don't know. I'm not so sure I'm going to make it. But think about this. In 1900, the average lifespan of a citizen of the United States was 40 years. Now, of course, that took into account a lot of fetal mortality and a lot of, but that was before vaccinations. It was before antibiotics. But think about that, 40. Now, if you're a female, it's over 81. It's about 81 years. Males are about 78, okay? They say that they actually want to die early, but I don't know. So what we've learned from those statistics is that as a group, we're living a lot longer. But what about an individual? How does one person know how long they're going to live? Is there any way that we can sort of work through that? Well, the first thing is, if you make it to 65, anybody here under 65? Don't lie. 64, right? Oh my God, what a youngster. All right, if you make it to 65, the average lifespan is 84. All right? If you make it to 70, you get one more year on the average lifespan, and that's 85. Now here's where it gets really cool. If you live to 80, the average lifespan, average now, is 89. You make it to 100, the average lifespan is 102. So the longer you live, the longer you are going to live. All right, so who makes it? You do. Now, do we have any control of this? Is this all just kind of rolling the dice? You know, oh my God, snake eyes, I'm out of here. It's more, there was an interesting article. It was published in 2008. It was in the Archives of Internal Medicine. And it followed 2,357 men, average age 72, and it followed them for 25 years. And if you were of normal weight, you didn't smoke, you were not diabetic, you had normal blood pressure, and you exercised twice a week, 54% of those people lived to be 90 years old. So we have control of this. When you say to your wife, says, why don't you go down to the gym and don't get on the treadmill. I'm not keen on treadmill here, but get on something that doesn't throw you. Yeah, I'm nervous. I said, I've been on the treadmill. There you go. Think about that 25 years is a lifetime. You've heard this lament, if I only could do it over again. If you're given 25 years, you have an opportunity to do it over again. And what do I want this to look like? Okay, what do I want it to look like? I want this to be an endless sequence of days full of joy, purpose, close to my family, close to my friends. But that requires some adjustments. We're going to talk about those adjustments. But I want, with my friends especially, profound bonds, understanding what's going on in their lives today. I want them to be interested in me and ask me how am I doing? And what's happened, of course, is that in our society, people are becoming more reclusive. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So, the last stage of life, I call it the late fragment. It's another book, unfortunately, but has the potential to be the most rewarding and most satisfying section or phase of your life. But it requires, as a cost of admission, that we have to change. If we try to take the trappings of success and we try to take the character traits that made us successful in our careers into retirement, we're going to fail. Okay, we are going to fail. That drive, that self-reliance, that ego, and a little bit too much ego is arrogance. It doesn't go. What we need is calmness, kindness, being loyal and trustworthy. Completely different set of character traits. But we need to be aware of how this phase is played out. There's potential for despair, and there's potential for depression, but there's also there's this magnificent potential to do things over, to make up for some of the things that we might not have done as well. It's all in the book, okay? All right. Common mistake number 2 is being unaware of the effects of aging on our brains and not compensating for them. Okay, so let's look at a graph of the speed in the 100-yard dash, the 200-yard dash, and the 400-yard dash. And let's look at the guys that are 16, 18, 20 years old versus the guys that are 90 years old. How do you think, if anybody's running the 100-yard dash that's 90 years old, do we have any sprinters here, 90-year-old sprinters? Okay. But here's the deal, that all we have to do is look in the mirror to see the effects that age has on our bodies. Okay? The lines, puffiness, the exaggerations, brown spots. And yet, a lot of people don't think that just normal aging affects your brain. Well, of course it does. And a lot of those changes are predictable. But if you're not aware of how your brain is affected by aging, then you're not going to make the compensations. You're not going to be aware, so therefore you're going to think you're losing it. Now I'm going to read you two things from the book, but this is a buddy of mine. Some of you know him. I call him RGB. He's a 70-year-old friend who frantically calls me one afternoon. I'm losing it, and I need to see you right away. My father had Alzheimer's late in life, and I knew this would happen. I got it. I asked, well, what's prompted all this? I was with you 3 weeks ago, and there was no sign that anything was wrong. I don't think this panic has been around too long. He says, 3 things have occurred in the past 2 weeks that have convinced me that I'm definitely losing it. The first 2 happened on successive nights last week. I often wake up in the night and have trouble going back to sleep. I will go down to the kitchen and eat a bowl of ice cream. On this particular night, he's a big guy. Okay. On this particular night, I left the freezer door open. Sarah, my wife, came down the next morning, and she was obviously upset that I had been so careless. The killer was, I did the exact same thing the next night. Now I'm beginning to doubt myself. And she is rolling her eyes and thinking, here we go. The third clue was the hardest. I have played golf with the same foursome every Wednesday afternoon for more than 10 years. We were teeing off, and I realized that I could not recall the names of 2 guys in the foursome. These are my close friends, and their names had left me. Get this. I had to sneak around their cart to look at the names on their golf bag. Are you kidding me? I definitely have been slowing down since retiring. I am not as sharp with names, and forget about technology. I lost the ability to turn on my TV with a new remote. I had to get my son to come over to turn the damn thing on. He put duct tape over one button that apparently can't be pushed, or the TV can't be turned on. So we got RGB in the clinic and took a careful history, examined him, and did neuropsychological testing. We sent off labs and did an MRI. Everything came back normal. We did follow up on his difficulty sleeping, but we were able to apply the best medicine, reassurance, and he went back to living his life. But the things that you need to worry about, okay? Well, let's talk about things you don't need to worry about. First, names. I don't care about names. Okay? Name is an abstraction. Think about this, that you remember someone, and you're trying to remember their name. Their face comes up in your brain, and you remember. I said, oh, I remember. I was with that guy at UVA, and I remember he had the best looking sister I've ever seen in my life. And all those memories come back. So you form a whole profile on this guy, but the name doesn't come readily because it's an abstraction. It's a moniker that is arbitrarily put on him, and you don't have any experience with it. So I don't care about names. Also, if y'all are in the dining room, you're over, where is it that everybody goes for breakfast here? What's the name of the place? Stacks. Yeah. You go in there and it's like Sun City redo, isn't it? Everybody's in there. So someone walks in the door, Stacks, and you're sitting there going, oh my God, what's that guy's name? Oh, I know it. I think we saw him over at the golf course the other day. And you turn to your wife and say, Norma, who is that guy? She said, I've never seen him before. And so you ruin your meal, okay, because you're worried about that damn guy and his name. And then you realize, and so when he comes over, of course, what you do is, you immediately let him know that you don't know his name because you yell, hello, how you doing, buddy? You know, I mean, you do all this. And then you realize he has no idea who you are. So give it up. It does not matter. Names. The second thing is technology. Technology has changed aging. Okay? My grandfather, Charlie Ahern, born South Boston, Massachusetts, probably finished the 8th grade, may have finished the 8th grade. If he walked in here, he would have a Panama hat on, seersucker suit, two-tone shoes. He was a presence. Everything he said was gospel to my brother and I. He would take us place. He loved battlefields. And so he would take us to these battlefields, and he would be telling us a story. Now, when we were 8 and 6, we sort of bought into it, okay? And then when we got to be 9 or 10, we realized he didn't have, he would say, the rebel soldiers were lined up here, they were dead up into your arms. And my brother would say, I think this is a Revolutionary War battlefield. Okay, but his stories were so much better than the markers. So for us, he was almost godlike. You were with him. Things happened. Doors opened. You got to see the Red Sox play. He was amazing. Me, with my grandchildren, I'm the guy that's not quite as good on the iPad as they are. They honestly sometimes think they're smarter than I am. And, or I'll be fiddling with the phone, and they'll say, Grandpa, give it to me. Boom. Done. And so we have been reduced a little bit. Technology is reduced. I don't care about technology. They come in and say, I've lost the ability to do this. I'll say, throw the damn thing away. It doesn't matter. Okay? Also, another thing that happens in our lives is that we become less apt of picking up errors. There's a group of people called super agers, and there's a whole chapter in the book. Now, I know about half of y'all think you're a super ager. Buy the book and see if you are, okay? Super agers are people who have energy, and when they have an idea, they're going to do it, all right? It's not like, oh, I got this idea, I don't think I want to do it. They're going to do it. And what they are really good at is picking up errors. They will come into a room and they'll say, something funny here, okay? Super agers. They pick up errors. I want to tell you one quick story that I see patients at their facility or at their home. It used to be on Wednesday, but now it's, I don't know when it's Thursday, or it used to be Thursday, now it's Wednesday. But everybody know where on Park Road the Giant Genie used to be, and there's a creek that goes right by it. And over there's a nursing home called Brookdale South Park, I think is what it is. And so I pull in and I get coffee at this coffee house right there before I go. And one of my caregivers has a kiosk there. She has just a little thing, and her husband's one of my patients. So I'm coming out of the coffee house with my coffee, and I've got it in my hand, and he goes, whoa, wait a minute, I know you. And I said, yes, sir, you do, Mr. Jones. You know me. He said, high school. And I said, Mr. Jones, I am your memory doctor. And he goes, you're doing a terrible job. And then he, so then I get in the car and I start to drive off. And he starts screaming. He says, stop, stop. And so I stop, I roll the window down. He reached up and grabbed the coffee on the car lid and handed it to us. And he said, you don't know how good this makes me feel. So the point about the story is we are all going to do stupid things. And sometimes they're really stupid, okay? If we have a glitch, if we have something that we've forgotten or we weren't paying attention, hold it lightly. It's not the end of the world. Oftentimes, even mild memory loss. We can live a completely normal life with some mild memory loss, provided we recognize it and compensate for it. What part of the brain is affected by aging? Well, in the book, I talk about the frontal lobe. Okay? When you see a picture of a Neanderthal, flat front, you have some here, there are some here. But they have a flattened forehead because they don't have a prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the most important evolutionary development ever. It is where we are able to solve problems. It is where we can filter out distractions. It's where we can multitask. Okay? So where do you think aging hits us the hardest? Right in the prefrontal cortex. And so every year after the age of 28, you are losing about 0.5%, about 0.5% of the volume of your prefrontal cortex. So that effect, there are two things that are affected out of proportion. One is the ability to multitask. You know this. There's a young girl, she is 24 years old. She's got 3 small children under her feet. She's talking to her mother-in-law on the phone and she's cooking dinner. She's doing all 3 of those things, no problem, okay? Little kid gets too close, she moves them away. And the mother-in-law starts getting a little testy and she handles that. So when we age and we get up in our 70s, one of the things that happens is, one, that we can't multitask anymore. We got 3 things and we forget 2 of them. And the later, we only got 1 left, okay? And then we forget that one sometimes. The other thing is being able to filter out distractions. When we filter out distractions, if you're not able to filter out distractions, we can't solve problems. We cannot solve problems because you're totally always looking around. It's that ability to focus allows us to have the wheel, the atom bomb, the golf ball, doesn't matter. But it's, so when we age, we can't filter out those distractions quite as readily. I want to just read very short what the effects of aging is on the frontal lobe. And let's see. Okay. All right. First, tasks will take longer. Some a lot longer. I often hear that balancing the checkbook used to take me an hour. Now it takes 2, if it happens at all. Okay? Thought processing slows down. Your kids, your grandkids are talking back and forth. They're using a lot of slang and everything, and you're trying to, keep up with them. And all of a sudden you realize, I'm a little bit slower, especially on pop culture things. So be aware that that's what happens. When participating in conversation, following the gist of it may be delayed. Tangential references or unfamiliar asides will really throw us off. Getting it will take time. And you get back, and you've been at the table, and people have been talking, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, you sit up and you go, oh, that was really funny. Now I get it. A little late, but 3, distractions will be more frequent and harder to overcome. when younger, we can pick up where we left off. Now you come back to where you were if you're doing your taxes, and you got to start over, okay? Don't let that bother you. It's just all part of aging, normal aging. Multitasking is a casualty of aging. The days of executing 3 things at once are gone. It will soon get down to 1. Our ability to recognize errors wanes with age. The clue that something is amiss eludes us. That becomes really important when we're driving, okay? Driving is one of the safety issues that we have. Everybody's real sensitive about it, as you might imagine. I've had to take some driving away from people in this room. I'm surprised I'm not getting tomatoes up here. I like the days of impulsively driving, or think it's really cool to go faster than the speed limit. I like my patients to sit, or my caregivers to sit for about 30 or 45 seconds when they get behind the wheel and close their eyes and make a picture of where they're going, okay? So that they don't get surprised. I don't like my patients to drive at night. We have 3 rules. We love right turns, okay? Always go out at the light coming out of here, okay? There's a back way to come out, but there's no light, correct? Okay. Don't go that way. Second of all, we never accelerate into a line of traffic, and we never cross a major thoroughfare except at a light. Okay, this business of trying on 21 or 521, of goosing it and getting out. Every day, people have accidents. You have an accident, your kids come and take your license away. Okay, I had to do that to my dad. I had to take his license. I had to take his keys away. And my son and I went over there together. My son was probably 13 or 14 when he went with me, and it was really sad. My dad was, and there's a little blurb about him in the book, but he was amazing. But I told him, I said, Dad, you were the one that taught me to never shirk from my responsibilities, and you can't drive. Okay, your memory loss has gotten you to the point where you're not safe to drive. And so I go out, and I'm a little teary, and my son's sitting next to me. We're driving home, and he says, Dad, I hope you'll be as much of a man like Grampy was the day I take your license. And I said, you little bastard, you're not taking my license. Technology will require patience and mentoring. The improvement in our ability to function must be the goal. One of the things about technology is that it has 15 or 20 functions of anything that you are trying to learn. And only 2 of them are going to make your life better. So when you go on, they say, oh, you can do this and you can do that. And you turn to the people and say, I don't want to do that. Okay, this is a phone. I want to talk to someone on the other side of the phone. Okay? Balancing the effects of aging with meeting the demands of complicated lives will cause anxiety. Anxiety and our goals of calm and purpose are at odds. Understanding the source of anxiety and ways to manage it are crucial to successful aging. Now we're going to talk a little bit, if we got time. Am I doing okay on time? How are we looking? Okay. Am I quarter till? You want me to stop? Okay. All right. So one of the things I want to stress right here, very important. Yeah, you'll get to ask me all kinds of questions. All right. 2 things really important. Will is the vital link between thought and action. Okay, will. It is the crux of our getting anything done. And so what happens, will wanes as we age. Okay? If you have a to-do list, and it's got 6 things on it, most of the time 6 things aren't going to get done. You've got an excuse. If you put something on a list to do it, it has to get done. Okay? Do not let apathy prevent you from getting stuff done. The last thing and two more things that are important. One is that we ask for help from people who love us long before we think we need it. Okay? Especially, let's say you've got a daughter-in-law who is a math whiz, and you're struggling with getting your bills paid, or you've got accounts all over the place, and your take on it is, I can do this myself. I can do this. I don't need any help. Okay? I got a flip side is, bring those loved ones in long before you need them. It might not be about the checkbook, but having your son or daughter-in-law or someone having lunch with you once every month and going over those things is a gift. This business of, I can do this myself, is a lonely walk. And you tell people emotionally, I don't need you, and when you need them, they will not be there for you. Okay? And the last thing is, the frontal lobe is the center of risk. And what that means is that every day, every month, every year, we have people lose millions of dollars. We have one family, they were worth $100 million, and they don't have one penny now because the patriarch made bad decisions because his frontal lobe was gone, and he lost all the money. So we have fail-safes, okay? Know who your management, get your, you've got a son that's a stockbroker. Get him to help you to, it doesn't mean that you give up control. It means that you get some help so that mistakes aren't made. Okay? All right. So let me go back to one thing, and then we'll open this up for questions. All right. I want to talk about things that you can do that are crucial to protecting your brain. All right. The first is recognizing what depression looks like as we age. When you are 22 years old and you see someone walking across the lawn or something, and his body habitus is down, his physiognomy of his face is saddened, and you go, that guy's depressed. You can just pick it out. It's easy. When we age, depression presents in different ways. One, it can be nothing more than a change in personality. Someone that was calm and gentle all of a sudden is edgy and angry. Second thing is, you might see this entity called apathy, and what's worse is anhedonia. Anhedonia is the loss of the pleasure from things that you used to love to do. Now, one of the saddest is that guys that used to be really good golfers say, well, I don't play golf anymore because I'm not any good. That is the lamest. This is not about golf. It's about being out there with your friends. It's about signing up and going out there. Who cares if you have three-putted? When you do what I do for a living and you play golf with someone that has a tantrum over hitting a bad shot, you don't have a lot of use for it, okay? There's a lot more important things. But you need to be out there with your buddies. This is probably the most important thing. Hypertension. Hypertension drives memory loss. Now, there's this entity that is called the white coat syndrome. And it's the nurse comes in and measures your blood pressure. And she goes, oh, you're a little nervous today. It's 160 over 95. And you go, I always get nervous. And she goes, oh, okay, that's no big deal. Or we'll take it later. All right? The white coat syndrome doesn't exist. If you look at people in a study that say they have white coat syndrome, the incidence of stroke and heart failure and myocardial infarction is much higher in that group. So you stop that nurse and say, this blood pressure is too high. I want the doctor to know about this, all right? Because we are so vigilant about blood pressure. Now, when you are 85 years old, I'll take 140. I might even take 150. I'm not going to take 170, okay? And the lower number should be almost always under 85. Also, a lot of the medications that treat blood pressure are really protective for dementia. So what does that tell you? Hypertension is causing the dementia. All right, destructive medications. There's one group, I'm not going to go into all of them, but there's one group. Now, I do not want the people who are on this medication to stop it. Okay? But the benzodiazepines, Xanax, lorazepam, Klonopin, Valium, Librium, all very bad for memory. And so but the joke at Hopkins was, they are great for anxiety, but they cause you to fall. Now, anxiety is something, and I wrote a chapter in the book, and I want y'all to, if you are interested, but if you are on those medications, especially a drug like Klonopin, it's used for restless leg, and it can be, in lower doses, it can be okay. But if I start to take you off of Klonopin, you would withdraw. Okay, you'll get the sweat, you'll get nervous, you'll get very anxious. So under your doctor's guise, you start to come off these medications, but they're very addicting and they have a lot of negative. And physicians write them all the time. If they were memory doctors and see what I see, they would never write them. But the benzodiazepines, Xanax, lorazepam, Klonopin, all those. All right. Okay. The number one marker for the development of dementia in a person's life is hearing loss. Okay, and I've got guys who say, I don't really need hearing aids, and they are reading my lips. I mean, so if you should have your hearing checked, and if you have a hearing deficit, get a hearing aid. No one cares that you've got a little thing on the back of your ear, and it's not that you're getting old. But I can oftentimes take people and bring them back to a normal level of decline when I treat hearing loss. Okay? All right, last thing, and then I'll quit. We've just been through a tremendous shock to our system with COVID. COVID has, it's really affected, we spent 2 years around family members sometimes, or we spent almost 2 years alone. And COVID taught us several things. One is that we've lost some of the faith in our institutions, like the CDC and the FDA and all that stuff. They got a political spin on it, which was very upsetting to me, because I always thought that the CDC was the greatest infectious disease place in the whole world. And they haven't gotten any of it right. Okay? We had to get all our information from Israel. Okay? We got all, and they still haven't come out with any data. All right, so what are the lessons from COVID? The first is that obesity kills. 65% of the people that are hospitalized were morbidly obese. 75% of the people that had to be intubated were obese, and about 85% of the people that died. Okay. Second thing is that seemingly non-essential interactions with people, the people that you go in and there's a waitress that waits on you, or the person that cuts your hair, or the person that, does anybody here go to Blackhawk Hardware? It's the center of the universe. Okay, you gotta go. But Blackhawk Hardware, and you go in there and the guy helps you find a screw. Now, when you're talking, my wife gets furious when I say this, but when you're talking to your spouse, your brain's not doing much, okay? You're so familiar that it's just not. But you talk to someone getting ready to tee off, or you're at lunch and you're talking to someone, your brain is exploding. So we found that these seemingly non-essential interactions with people like in this room are actually crucial to our lives. It keeps our brains, it keeps anxiety down. Okay? We have a time, we are in an anxious age right now. And part of it is that we have become very careless in the way we speak, the emphasis that we use. During COVID, I had on the left and the right people who watch nothing but Fox News or nothing but MSNBC. They had a 2-year dosage of it. And they came out saying, I can't be friends with people that disagree with me because I'm self-righteous. And what happened is poison get the news, but do not let these channels affect you emotionally. That's why they got you. Okay, see that? That's why I'm not doing heart surgery. But they manipulate your emotions and get you to actually despise people or have contempt for people who have a different idea than you do. And people have different experiences in life. They might come from Western Pennsylvania and they don't trust a guy in a suit. They're not going to be a Republican. Okay? Or completely different. Everybody has different experiences and their politics reflect that. So there's poison in these programs. And as our frontal lobes are less able to filter through, they get you. Okay? I read this good thing the other night, and I'll stop with this quote. It says, argue like you're right, but listen like you're wrong. Okay? All right.
Thank you. And also, we're talking a little bit. All right, I'm going to ask the first question because you asked me to. How important is water in our daily diet?
That's not what I asked you. You lead me. Okay. All right. The question was, what I wanted to ask you was.
That's true.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
My apologies.
That's okay. That's all right.
You ask yourself the question.
Okay, so when we see people with mild cognitive impairment, or I'm losing it just a little bit, there are tremendous fluctuations day to day. On a Monday, the patient may be on their A game, and they do beautifully. And then on Wednesday, they're out of it. They're foggy. 3 things cause us to change day to day. One is simple, it's hydration. Okay? We should be drinking water at every meal before we have sweet tea and all that, okay? And we should have a glass of water mid-morning and mid-afternoon. I know you say, well, I'll have to pee all night long. That's not necessarily true because the more water you drink, the more healthy your bladder gets. It stretches and you don't have that overactive bladder. So hydration. The second is if you're diabetic, blood sugar, okay? If your blood sugar gets up, it's going to cause you to get dehydrated, and also the sugar affects your brain. And the third thing is medication errors. We see patients with mild memory loss, they don't forget to take their medication. They forgot they took it, they take it again. So we like couples to do their medication together and watch out for each other, okay? Oh, I see that Thursday and Friday are already gone. And you go, really? Okay, so medication. We don't think 90% of people, no, I would say that probably 20 or 30% of people are not taking their medications.
All right.
Fantastic program, thank you. My question was regarding, you didn't mention anything about diet. There's a plant-based diet, vegan, pescatarian, things you should eat, should not eat. What is your opinion on different types of diets and how does that affect aging?
You're asking the wrong guy. I think cheeseburgers are a food group. Right, no, wait a minute, let me make, okay, so all the data is on the Mediterranean diet, all right? Now, there is so much misuse of, and I think we should eat healthy. I'm ashamed to say this, but I have this one thing that I eat or drink every morning. It starts with, I'm ashamed to say it because they'll take my UVA diploma away. Kombucha, about this much, okay? Banana, pineapple, turmeric, ginger, and then kale. I can hardly say it, okay? It makes this nasty green thing, all right? But the kombucha has a lot of anaerobic bacteria in it, and anaerobic stuff is what is the good bacteria in our gut. So there's some method to my madness. the Mediterranean diet, if you can do it, the majority of our diet should be that, okay? That we eat low fat, but don't go overboard on this stuff, okay? So many people, they feel like they're on a diet for their whole life, okay? Someone's on their hospice is there, and they set them up and say, oh, I can't eat that, it'll make me fat. And it's got a kid, you know. But 80%, okay, you can change, you get 80%, this is Parkinson's law, you can get 80% of the benefit by changing 20% of the things that you do. There might be something, alcohol. Alcohol, as we age, we don't metabolize it as readily. Alcoholic dehydrogenase, the enzyme, wanes. So if you have 3 drinks, you're out. You're going to fall. So I like 2 days or 3 days a week where you don't drink at all, and then you have a limit. That if you have a cocktail, you have a glass of wine, or you can have 2 glasses of wine. But this business also I had this guy, I said, how many fingers do you pour? He says, 4. So alcohol, but I'm not trying to be flippant. It's just that there's never been one study to show that antioxidant, a supplement or food, reduces the inflammation in your body. So we're not there yet. It's coming, but we're not there yet. My wife would kill me for that answer. Laurie?
My question is going in that direction as well. How important do you think supplements are as we age? I know I've read a lot about get your vitamins from food, but are there any particular supplements that you think are very important for us?
Well, you already know my answer to this. I'm not a supplement guy. I like 2 things. I like patients to take vitamin D because we're using so much sunscreen and stuff. Vitamin D comes from sunshine, and vitamin D is a hormone. Now, we really don't have a lot of science, but it's at the basis of a lot of things in our bodies. And the second is vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 we don't absorb as readily as we age. But all the rest of the stuff, someone's going to ask me, Prevagen, no. Okay, no. Just be really careful. If they say it's pharmacist recommended, it's probably not something you want to do. Okay.
You might speak to this in your book, and we're certainly going to buy it. But how big of a role do you feel hereditary plays in the Alzheimer's diagnosis?
There's a group of directly inherited. Has anybody here read Still Alice? You know the book? Okay. She had a entity called presenilin 1, or she was presenilin 2 actually, and that is if you inherit that gene from either your mother or father, you are going to get early onset Alzheimer's. That's where you've read about those families in Colombia, South America, where we're studying a lot of these medications now, these clinical trials. But that's a very small percentage. It's about 3% of people who have it, maybe not even that much. Then there's a group of inherited genes called ApoE, ApoE2, 3, and 4. If you have a 2 gene from either your parents and not a 4, then your incidence is a little bit lower than the average. Okay? If you have 2 covers of one cover of ApoE4, which my brother does, your incidence in your lifetime gets up into the mid-20s. Okay? ApoE4, 2 covers, we don't really know. And there's got to be a lot more data to come in because everybody's looking for a Nobel Prize, and they come along and they scare the hell out of everybody. And then 2 years later, they say you see a picture of the guy being arrested, because the data was false. So don't put a lot of stock. Also, I do not recommend people getting tested because there's no treatment for the disease. You don't want to walk around thinking that you've got an increased incidence of it. Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you for being here.
That's nice. I hear you. I hear you.
Really helped. somebody who's had many, many bypass surgeries takes given prescriptions from his doctor, should he ever go out and get a second opinion about the prescriptions and the pills he's taking?
Well, I think what you have to do though is, you have to pick your physicians and then you have to trust them. For coronary bypass, I did 20,000, maybe, I don't know, did a ton of them. And the treatment for those things, the statins, the statins are actually, I think, a positive thing. And I will put my patients, especially if they have any vascular disease, I'll put them on statins, not because of the lowering of the cholesterol, but mostly because they're so profoundly anti-inflammatory. So if there's an inflammatory component to dementia, that really helps. So I think it's pretty standard what they would have you on for your disease. I wouldn't have a lot of suspicion about, going in and saying, oh, I need second and third opinions about those medications. I think that's pretty set. I think you can trust it.
Hi, how important is daily exercise
It's
in
very
the role
important.
of aging?
Okay, but here's the deal on exercise. Okay, are we doing okay? Okay. Here's the deal on exercise. The kooks have ruined it for us, all right? So you're telling someone, okay, so you go and you decide you're gonna get in shape, and you run a 5K. You have to run a little bit, walk a little bit, but you're feeling really good about yourself. And so you come back to your car, and you're taking your shoes off, and the guy next says, oh, he's got a big 10K sticker on his, It makes you feel a little diminished, say, well, and then you do a 10K, and then there's a 12.5K. And then you see a 50K, and then the other day I saw 100K. These people are crazy, and they're ruining it. The person with the worst obsessive compulsive disorder will set the agenda until challenged, okay? So it is, let's say that you really enjoy walking on a big circle, okay? Big circle here. And you do it 3 times a week. That is terrific, all right? And the guy that's 100 years old that does, he says, oh man, I just walked down to Lancaster and back, and you go, that's great, man, but don't tell me, I don't want to hear it, okay? So what exercise you do is your business, and don't get influenced by the crackpots, okay? Very important, though.
We've got a question over here, Dr. Evans.
How much is your book?
The book is like $25. The proceeds go to the Memory Center, so it's not like I'm getting rich off of this damn thing. It's been really a nice way to connect with people. It's been another gift. Listen, thank y'all very much for having me.
I got one more question.